All right, everyone, it looks like we have a good amount of people logged onto the webinar so far. So we are going to go ahead and get started. First and foremost, thank you guys so much for joining us for our Girls for Hockey webinar, A New Mental Toughness, Skills and Strategies to Stay Active, Positive, and Motivated with Hockey on Hold. I am Megan Sweezy, and I'm the head coach of Girls for Hockey. We provide, for those who have not interacted with us before, we provide skill development opportunities for female players looking to kind of bring their game to the next level. And our goal is always to grow the game through not only on-ice activities, but through initiatives that provide that mentorship piece. With Hockey on Hold, we've been really looking for ways to help players right now as they sort of go through this unprecedented situation. And, people are missing their teams, they're missing their ice time. Hockey's an outlet for so many people. And we're going to talk a lot about sort of the stress everyone's feeling right now, as well as some skills and strategies for how to deal with that. We have a really great presentation for you tonight. We have Nicole Adach, who's a mental skills coach, who I'll introduce a little bit more specifically in a minute. She's going to focus on how to build, strengthen, and use those mental skills that I just mentioned. And then we're going to move forward and talk to a few NCAA players. We have Abby Dirks from SMC and Lilly Holmes from UVM, who will be joining us and talking a little bit about their experience right now as they sort of ramp up, hopefully for some games soon as well. So before we get into the real program, I do want to make sure to just let everybody know that if you have questions throughout the program, feel free to jump down to the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. If you move your mouse down, it should pop up. If you click that button, please feel free at any point to type questions in. We'll do our best to get to them. We do have pauses built in specifically for question and answer. And with that piece out of the way, I'm very excited to now introduce more formally Nicole Adach. Nicole is a mental skills coach and certified functional strength coach. She also played basketball at St. Michael's College and got her bachelor's degree in psychology there, but then went on and continued her exploration at St. Michael's College, getting her master's in clinical psychology, and she focused in on athletic identity in particular and has really brought that research to her mental skills coaching today. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Nicole, who has a great presentation for you in just a moment.
Oh, it worked. Okay. Hey, everyone. My name is Nicole Adach. Thank you, Megan. I think it's really awesome what we're doing here tonight to really help, not only recognize the difficult times that we're going through as athletes, as parents, as people, but also to be able to look for the opportunities that are here too. It's easy to look at all the limitations, restrictions, all the things we can't do that we want to do right now. So my job as a mental skills coach has always been to work on our mental game, because I think anyone who plays a sport recognizes how important the mind is. So I have a presentation here I'm going to go through, and we'll have time for questions later, but I really wanted to really dig deeper at the concept of building our mind and building our mental skills so that we don't feel like we're necessarily lost because we can't physically practice hockey, but instead we actually have room to improve other areas of our game that not only help us on the ice, but can also translate into life off the ice. So that's kind of what I'm going to talk about tonight, just what mental toughness is to me, and then the mental skills that can help us with our mental toughness. And then ultimately, what are some strategies and practices, things that we can do right now to help our mental toughness? Because believe it or not, whether you want to believe this or not, right now, this tough time that we're in is actually a breeding ground for building mental toughness. It's a major opportunity for all of us to start to get stronger mentally, even when we can't go to the gym physically. So I'm excited to be able to share a little bit with all of you and to hopefully answer some questions if you guys have any. So I am going to share my screen. Now, I'm not that technologically advanced, so I hope I get this right. Okay, I think everyone should see my screen here. I'm just trying to, there we go. Okay, so I put together a slideshow, like I said, just so that everyone has something they can look at. So it's not just me that you're looking at and that you can actually start to absorb some of this. This presentation is going to be available after with Megan. So I'm hoping that she'll be able to distribute it if and when anyone needs it. But if you guys have questions throughout, please feel free to put in the Q&A portion. I'd be happy to tackle some of those with the girls after. So like I said, my job is a mental skills coach. So I really work with athletes on understanding how to train their brain. Most athletes understand that, you know, when you go to the gym, when you go on the ice and do practices, when you're practicing or working out with, you know, the Girls for Hockey program, you're working on your game. You're getting better intentionally. However, a lot of us don't take enough time to work on our mind intentionally. So that's kind of what I'm here to hopefully raise some awareness to. I always like to say, imagine a coach telling you or telling your kiddo or telling your athlete, you need to get stronger. You need to physically get stronger, you're weak, or you need to get quicker, faster, whatever. I heard them all as an athlete myself. So you need to get stronger, you need to get faster. Now, the athlete more than likely is going to start going to the gym, is going to get a trainer, going to start working out with Girls for Hockey, is going to start really working on fundamental, you know, things that are going to help them become stronger, faster, eat better, sleep better, drink water, all these things we understand as a sport culture that we require in order to get physically better. However, a lot of times when a coach or a mentor or someone says, you got to get more confident, or you need to be more focused, or you need to build mental toughness. I hear that all the time, which is why I'm happy we're talking about this. Usually the athlete just like sits back and like agrees, like, yeah, you're right, I do need to get more confident. And then we leave it at that. And that is a big mistake. We all know that training the mind and having a strong mind is important, but we also don't really understand or comprehend how to actually train our minds to become more confident, to become more mentally tough, to become more focused. Those are all skills that can certainly be trained just like any other fundamental in sports. So again, understanding who you are at your best and using skills, mental skills, to help you be your best as often as possible, even when situations aren't great, such as right now. So this is a slide that's kind of busy. I'm not a fan of all the words, but I like to have the visual. So I want to just quickly go over stress and the stress response. So when I say stress, I don't necessarily mean like the stereotypical stress, like when everything's happening at once and you can't like do anything because like your ears are steaming. Like I mean stress like a bad situation that's eating at us. So right now we're in this COVID-19 kind of like pause moment. This is a stressful moment. We're still being asked to complete tasks like schoolwork, and we're still being asked to interact with our teammates. We're still being asked to be a decent person. Now we're also home, a lot of college students, so being asked to do more chores around the house, or high schoolers who are now doing school kind of part-time on Zoom, part-time in the classroom. They're home more, probably more obligations at home. So there's a lot of stuff happening. So naturally our stress response is going to be turned on and working. So I wanted to break down the stress response because this is a really great foundation to understand why mental skills are important and how we can begin to train our minds. So any human being, when facing a perceived stressor, so you see something or you experience something that you feel is a demand. So stress is not always a bad thing. Stress can be a good thing too. It's just essentially recognizing there's some challenge or some demand in front of us. So we go through this process, the stress response. The first stage is this alarm stage on the left side of the screen. The alarm stage of the stress response is essentially when we recognize something's up. Something is happening, I need to respond to it. So I always say that our brain is like a metal detector. So, you know, metal detectors are made to find metal, to detect metal. So you're walking on the sand with the metal detector in your hands and you're waiting for it to go off. Our brains are like that, but not with metal. Our brains are like that with threats. So all day, every day, human beings are walking around with this assessment going on, screening the environment. Am I okay? Am I safe? Am I okay? Am I safe? Am I okay? Am I safe? Is there a threat in front of me? Am I okay? Constantly asking itself, am I okay? The moment that something happens that can, you know, be a stressor to us, that metal detector, that threat detector goes off. Ding, 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 ding. There's something that's going to get in the way between me and my happiness, me and my peace. So that's the first stage of the stress response. Essentially, when your eyes are open and you detect a threat around you. That can be as simple as your cell phone ringing. It can be as embarrassing as a coach screaming at you. They're both stressors, and they're both happening in that alarm stage when we're all of a sudden aware that something's going on. Once our body and our brain is aware that there's a stressor in our environment or close by, we go into the second stage of stress, which is the resistance and adaptation phase. I wish there was a nicer word for this, but essentially this is the fight or flight time. So you guys have all heard of fight or flight before, and all of these things start happening in our bodies, all with the intention to protect ourselves. Because remember, our brain went off like a detector. Ding, 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 I detect a threat. And now can I take care of myself so I can stay safe? So things like our blood pressure, our heart rate, our breathing, all of those things elevate and escalate, accelerate, so that we can protect ourselves and essentially either fight or flight. So this is like, you think of back in the caveman and cavewoman days when a saber-toothed tiger is running at you. Granted, none of us were cavemen and women, but you think about a caveman or woman being chased down by a saber-toothed tiger. Initially, that caveman or woman has to either fight the beast or run like heck, because that's how they can protect themselves. So humans, we don't face saber-toothed tigers anymore, but we still face stress and we still respond the same way that we did when we were cave people. So our blood pressure elevates, our heart rate rises, our energy actually moves from our internal digestion and our internal processing to our extremities, like our fingers and our toes, so that we can run or fight. So our body is doing all of this amazing work just to protect ourselves. So that's when our cortisol, stress hormones and our adrenaline get released, and we get in that like antsy mode. I always say, I know when I'm nervous because my hands start getting a little sweaty, and before basketball games, my fingertips used to really tingle. That's how I would know I was nervous. So I was feeling the stress because my fingertips were tingling. So when that happens to us, if we don't deal with it, if we don't deal with the stress, then we just stay chronically stressed, and we go into that third stage, which is the burnout stage. This is scary. And if I could see you guys, which I can't, I would ask show of hands, how many of you felt burnt out before? I guarantee almost everyone. So burnout happens when we're not able to take care of ourselves in that second stage of stress. And when we're working hard internally in our brains and our bodies to elevate our blood pressure, our heart rate, our breathing, all that stuff is happening, and we don't allow ourselves to calm down and feel safe, we get into that burnout stage. And when we're in that burnout stage, that's dangerous, because that's when our mental health, our decision-making, our well-being emotionally, that stuff all goes to the back burner, because all our body is trying to do is protect itself from the stressor at hand. So I'll give a really quick scenario here. A coach yells at you on the ice. You make some like boneheaded mistake, and you know you made the mistake. You're a little embarrassed, big game, and coach screams at you. Naturally, I know me, I would freak out, like, oh my gosh, like this is the worst case scenario. So the blood pressure starts elevating. I start breathing and panting heavy. My pupils dilate. Our ears actually rotate so we can hear better and protect ourselves. It's true that that happens. My adrenaline's pumping. And if I don't have a strategy or a tool or a mental skill to help me feel calm, I'm going to feel really up here, really agitated, really stressed. And then I'm not going to be able to focus for the rest of the game, because now I'm trying to protect myself from that nasty feeling of being embarrassed by coach. So it's not necessarily coach's job not to yell, but it is our job as athletes to recognize when we feel stressed so that we can handle it. Because if we don't handle our stress, then it's going to control us. So right now we're in this COVID-19 time. If we don't recognize what's stressing us out, what's creating this like nastiness inside of us, then it's going to own us, and we're not going to be able to take advantage of the time that we have right now. So I always like to show this slide just to show that it's normal to feel stressed out. If we didn't feel stressed, there'd be a problem. That's weird. We got to feel stressed. It helps us stay urgent. It helps us stay alert. It helps us make decisions. It helps us protect ourselves. But if we don't keep it in control or in a controllable, I guess, level or degree of stress, then it's going to run our lives. It's going to run our experience, and we're not going to have a good one. We're going to get into that burnout stage. We start to get physically sick. We start to get tired. We don't take care of ourselves. Our decision-making actually gets like bad. All these things happen because we haven't handled our stress. So this is a much more simple slide. So that was all the stress response. What happens to humans when we feel stressed? I mean, you guys could probably name that about a lot of things: social life, school, hockey, whatever, you name it, we feel stress. So I like to use the symbol of a cup to describe how we can start to begin to think about how stressed we are, because we can't manage our stress, you guys, until we recognize our stress. So it's really important that we use mindfulness, which I'll get into, to notice how stressed we are, what stress does to us. So I use a cup very intentionally. I have a water bottle here, so it's perfect. So I use a cup to describe how much we can handle when it comes to stress. So a cup comes in a lot of different sizes, right? There's this big water bottle. We have those little Dixie cups. There's something in between. There's those huge Gatorade jugs that you have on like the soccer field and stuff. So there's all different size cups. Now it's our job to recognize how much we can handle. So when I say on this first question, what size is your cup? How much stress can we handle before it's like too much? Because everyone knows if I open this water bottle and I start pouring water in it and I don't stop, even when it's approaching full, what's going to happen? It's going to overflow. Now, when the cup overflows, then we're in damage control. So thinking about it in terms of literally a cup in water, if I'm pouring water in my cup and then it starts overflowing, I'm not even able to enjoy the water anymore because now I'm just focused on like cleaning up the mess. When it comes to stress, if we're not paying attention to what's filling our cup of stress, we're going to get to a point where we're so stressed out that we're not able to be okay because we're in that burnout, chronic like exhaustion state where all we're trying to do is survive. So that's when people get irritable, when they get short, they get like, I know I get short with people when I know my cup is up here, I start to get irritable and short. Other people kind of close themselves off and want to be alone. Other people cry, other people yell. Everyone has a different version of what their overflow looks like. So how full is your cup? Once you know how big it is, right? Some people have that Gatorade sized jug where they can take on any stress and it feels like they're just like fine, lucky. Then there's other people who have like the little Dixie cup, like those bathroom cups of stress, and they stub their toe and all of a sudden their day is over with. They're just too stressed. They can't handle anything else. So for the Dixie cup person, that's all they can handle. For the Gatorade jug person, they can handle a lot more. So knowing how big your cup is and then how full it is. So how do you know how full your cup is? It's really getting to know yourself. I know when I'm short with people or when I start like talking under my, like, you know, muttering under my breath, I'm like, oh, shoot, something happened that led me to be in this overflow moment. So how can I work on it? So that's kind of what question 3 is about. How do I show up when my cup is like up here? So you think of all of you right now with, you know, this pause in the season and you're kind of in this place of uncertainty. You know, you have the average stress, schoolwork, that fills your cup a little bit, maybe a lot of it, depending on what school is like for you, but school fills your cup. And then maybe family obligations, it's the holidays, there's always extra stuff going on, who knows? So that fills your cup. And then you get in an argument with your friend. And then you usually go to hockey practice, but that's canceled. So now you're like, oh my gosh. And then you can't go outside because it's freezing. Well, guess what? We're at that full capacity. How do you show up? And that's a question that everyone has to ask for themselves. How do I show up when my cup is just totally full? So there's one thing that I want to mention about this whole cup analogy symbol thing that I use. A cup is meant to hold water, right? A cup is meant to hold water. If I walked around with an empty cup all day, people would think I was a little odd, right? What's the point of her walking around with the empty water bottle? The point of a water bottle is to hold cup. Humans are going to face stress. The goal should not be to have zero stress in your cup. The goal should be to be a manageable level, manageable fill, so that you're not walking on eggshells like when you fill your coffee mug too full in the morning and you're walking around hoping you don't bump into anything. Because if we're walking around with our cups just about to overflow, but not yet, it's at that like bubbling over point, and someone bumps you the wrong way, something unpredictable happens, overflow. We don't want that to happen. If the cup was at a manageable place, someone bumps you, okay, it's annoying, but I'm okay. So if your cup before this whole season pause happened was already up here, and then we were told that we don't have the opportunity to practice on the ice, that's going to overflow us. It's going to be that bump that tips the scale. So we have to make sure that we're paying attention to how stressed we are. So a nice little, and I'll go over this in a minute, but a nice little journal. I'm a big journaler. Like I'm a fan of journaling. I will say it forever. A good journal prompt, honestly, is to draw a cup like the one that you see on this slide on a piece of paper and just write out what's filling my cup. Like what's in it right now? Well, I just got in an argument with Sally and my mom's yelling at me to do the laundry and now I can't go to practice and I'm dealing with this injury that's really annoying and now it's finals week, and just start to figure out what's filling my cup, how full is it, and then what can I do to begin to like lessen the fill, because it's not like it's cement, it's water. We have to find a draining system, and this is where mental skills come in. A draining system to help us reduce the fill so that it's at a manageable place. So the reason why I like to show these two slides first before getting into mental skills is because we're all facing stress right now. Major stress, lots of stress. And it's stressful alone without a year of COVID-19, but now we're adding that on. So life is stressful right now. So this whole stress response slide, this middle stage of the resistance or adaptation, that fight or flight moment, if we can learn to use our cup and kind of think about how full we are, how stressed we are, how am I showing up right now, then we can avoid getting into that chronic burnout place, which is really, really cool and necessary. So enough about stress. Let's talk about mental skills, more fun. So mental skills, you think of the word skill, something that can be practiced and improved, just like any other skill on the ice. So mental skills are skills that we can improve here to help us. So mindfulness, I'm sure you guys have heard of, is a mental skill. Mindfulness is interesting because it's a mental skill, but it's also a state of mind. As a state of mind, mindfulness is just paying attention, being present. I always say it's paying attention on purpose. But to practice the skill of mindfulness, one of the first things we need to do is reflect. And when I say reflect, I mean think about ourselves and just kind of ponder on ourselves and what makes us tick so that we can help ourselves tick faster and better. So this word RAIN I use all the time. It's an acronym that helps you begin to understand yourself a little bit more. So this is another great journal prompt, by the way. So RAIN, R stands for recognize. Recognize how you're feeling. Recognize what's going on inside of you, around you. Recognize what the stressor might be that you're facing. Recognize how it's impacting you. Recognize the size of your cup, how full it is. Recognize it. Pay attention on purpose. If we ignore things, they don't go away. They just sit there. We can only work through our stuff if we know what our stuff is. So recognizing is a really brave and really necessary step. We got to recognize how we're feeling. And I'll talk about this a little bit more, but feelings can't be wrong. We feel what we feel. And I'll get into that in a minute, but recognizing it is really important. A is accepting it. So accepting it doesn't mean being happy with it. Accepting it means, okay, this is what it is right now. How can I help myself here? Accepting it is just accepting what is happening to you and respecting yourself enough to acknowledge it. If we resist it or avoid it or pretend it's not happening, we're really dishonoring ourselves. We're not allowing ourselves to help ourselves. So that's why on the top of the slide, I say self-care, because it is mindfulness, it's paying attention, but it's also taking care of yourself. This is very necessary. So recognizing what's going on for you, accepting it. The third step is investigate. This is my favorite step. It's like you're your own little detective. So investigate what you might need. Okay, I recognize that I'm really stressed out because my cup is almost full. I'm accepting my cup's full. I can't put a cap on it and pretend it's not there. I'm accepting it. And investigate is, okay, right now I'm really stressed and really agitated. I'd rather be feeling calm. I wish I was feeling calm and happy. That'd be nice, right? So I start to investigate. What can make me feel calm and happy? What can help me produce a positive feeling in this moment? What can I do? Something simple. And then you write a list, or you think of a list, or you know what, when I'm in the sun, it really helps. Or when I talk to my mom, it really helps. Or journaling helps, watching a movie, listening to a song, that really helps. That's investigating. You're just trying to problem solve. And then N is nurture. So nurturing is doing something to help you. I say that I investigate is like finding out what you need. And then N is feeding the need. So if you know that talking to your mom helps you feel less stressed, then nurturing is doing that. Go talk to your mom. And it's so simple, but it's not done enough, you guys. Like, I wouldn't be talking about this here if it was already being done. We don't do this. Humans don't do this. We think we need to just keep going and pushing through, pretending that we're okay and everything's fine. We don't have to be okay and fine all the time. It's okay to not feel okay all of the time. The important thing is, what do we do with that? Our feelings are information. If we know what we're feeling, what's going on for us, how stressed we are, then that's when we can start to work to help ourselves. And that help can be with other people, with ourselves, whatever it might be. But we can't help ourselves through difficult feelings if we don't know what they are. So this is RAIN. It's just a little practice for mindfulness. So paying attention on purpose, mindfulness. And the more you do this, the more comfortable it becomes, the more of a habit and comfortable it becomes, it will strengthen itself as a skill. Eventually, like for me, for example, I do this stuff all the time. Like I journal every day and I write this stuff and I figure myself out. I'm like, where am I at today? What side of the bed did I get out of? Now I do this naturally. I don't have to write it down. I just kind of naturally think like, shoot, today I'm really tired. Well, I guess tonight I really should go to bed earlier because I was up way too late last night. That's rain, like that, really quick. That's all it has to look like. It doesn't have to be this complicated thing, but this is really important to start to pay attention to ourselves. Okay, this is my favorite mental skill. And the reason why self-talk is my favorite mental skill is because it's happening constantly. So there's always chances and opportunities for us to practice. So I'm sure you've all heard self-talk before, that phrase, but self-talk is happening 24/7. We're constantly talking to ourselves. People who say to me, no, I don't talk to myself. My answer is like, you're lying. You don't talk to yourself out loud, perhaps, but we're all constantly engaging in a conversation with ourselves, right? Before I got on this call, I thought to myself, all right, it's 6:50, I better get ready. That's self-talk, right? If I say to myself, oh, I'm not prepared for this presentation, that's self-talk. If I say to myself, I am very prepared for this presentation, that's also self-talk. So we're constantly talking to ourselves. And what's really important about self-talk is that what we say to ourselves, that constant conversation, that impacts how we feel inside. And then when we feel certain ways, we start to act in certain ways. So going back to the stress, when we're feeling stressed, we're going to show up the stressed version of ourselves. Maybe a little more uptight, a little bit more closed off, whatever it might be for you. So going back to that coach example of yelling on the ice when you get all nervous and stressed out. If a coach yells at me, my shoulders go up to my ears, I get really nervous, and then I start saying to myself, oh my God, I better not mess up again. That self-talk, I better not mess up again with my shoulders up to my ears, there's no way that I'm going to perform to my best because I'm just too caught up on stuff. So self-talk can and does impact how we feel and then how we show up. So this third word, behaviors, with athletes, a lot of times I replace that word with performance because I think sometimes that kind of hits a nerve in a different way. So what I say to myself, if I'm going, let's think of a current example, not going on the ice. So you wake up in the morning and it's a day that you don't go to school because you're on Zoom. And you think to yourself, this stinks. Like, I can't go to class, I don't see my friends, I'm stuck on the computer all day, and I don't get to play hockey. Ugh, this sucks. I'm sure we've all said it, right? I've said it, like we all say it. And so when you're saying that to yourself, the feeling that's generated is dread, stress, anxiety, worry, defeat, discouraged. Those feelings happen, right? And when you're feeling discouraged and defeated and stressed and anxious, how are you going to show up for the day? Probably this version of yourself again, right? The shoulders up to the ears. If I wake up in the morning and my alarm goes off and I think to myself, so my self-talk is, it's so early, I'm so tired, I don't want to be up right now. I'm going to feel tired. I'm going to feel lethargic, which is like a slug. It's like the combination of tired and lazy. And then I'm going to roll out of bed like a slug because I'm tired. And I told myself that, and now I feel it. Whereas if I wake up in the morning for a vacation, I say, woo, it's time to get up. It's time to go on vacation. I'm going to feel excited. I'm going to pop out of bed like a bunny, like very, very different experience of myself based on what I said. So when you walk onto the ice or you walk into the day or into the classroom or onto your computer and you say to yourself something, check in with how that makes you feel. How you talk to yourself impacts how you feel. And this is something that needs to, again, be intentionally practiced over and over and over again. You need to start to use mindfulness to pay attention to what you're saying to yourself. So even when you're feeling really stressed, if you say to yourself, oh, I'm so stressed, this is the worst, I'm not gonna get anything done, chances are you're not gonna get anything done. If you notice you're stressed, you say, oh man, I'm pretty stressed right now. What do I need to help myself to get through this? Well, it'd be really nice to talk to my mom about it, maybe make a plan. You're gonna feel a little bit more confident, a little bit more able to handle the situation, and then you're probably gonna handle the situation. So self-talk is a really, really important skill. So to kind of illustrate with the picture, I'm sure you all have seen those cartoons where, there's a main character who's struggling to make a decision. And then there is the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other shoulder. They're both talking. And the person in the middle is trying to figure out, who do I listen to right now? And it's kind of what this picture is, right? So instead of using angel and devil, I don't love that, I use coach and critic. So there's a coach on one shoulder and there's a critic on the other shoulder. Okay, or in your head, but on your shoulder. And the coach is saying positive things like, hey, you got this, just keep trying, like put the list together. It's a stressful time, but what are some things you can do right now The inner critic is like, you stink, you can't do this, feel discouraged, you should feel discouraged, this is the worst, oh my gosh, you're the worst, all the negative. Think of like the best coach, productive, helpful, encouraging, picks you up when you fall down. Now they're not cheerleaders. They'll encourage you sometimes maybe a little harshly, or they'll say some honest feedback to get you better, but it's with the intention of getting you better. The critic's intention is always to harm, to make you feel bad, to boo at whatever you do. So we have both talking to us all the time. And it's up to us to know who to listen to. The more we listen to that inner critic here, the more our shoulder just turns away, or our face turns away from this coach over here, and we just listen to the critic. The more attention we give to the critic, the louder the voice becomes, the quieter the coach becomes, the harder it is to know what the coach is saying. So it's really important for all of you guys to really reflect and ask yourselves, like, who do I listen to? Do I listen to that inner coach who's productive and happy and helpful, or do I listen to that critic who really puts me down? So going back to this page, if your thoughts are all critic thoughts, you're probably going to feel pretty lousy throughout the day, which doesn't help, right? As opposed to if your thoughts are all coach thoughts, you're going to feel a little bit more capable. You know, you might feel a little motivated to do better and to continue to try, but you're going to feel like you're going in the right direction. When you listen to that critic, that nasty voice, it doesn't do much for you. It makes you feel worse, do worse, and then think worse, and it's that nasty cycle. We want to break that cycle. And the beauty of mental skills, and why I love self-talk especially, is because all you need to practice this is you. You can practice this when you're in the classroom. You can practice this when you're with your friends. You can practice this when you look in the mirror in the bathroom in the morning. To be honest with you guys, I practice my self-talk when I'm running outside because I go for longer runs. And I'll catch myself if I'm listening to that inner critic, like, ugh, you still have such a long way to go. Why did I choose to do this today? I'm tired. I'll purposely say to myself, like, I'm not allowing the critic to talk to me on this run. What would the coach say? So anytime I hear the critic, I just kibosh it, say, shh, and I listen to the coach. And so as I'm running, I'm kind of having this inner dialogue, this conversation in my head, and trying to listen to the coach. The more that I hear that this coach is talking over here, as this critic is talking, the more my head starts to turn, and then the quieter this guy becomes or gal, and the louder the coach becomes. This skill is crucial. And I was going to go into this tonight, but I'm not going to, just because for sake of time. But our self-talk is the #1 mental skill that determines how confident we are. So if I'm saying nasty things to myself, more than likely my confidence is going to plummet. And we know as athletes, as girls especially, we know how important confidence is. If we talk to ourselves like we want ourselves to fail, we're not going to feel confident. If we talk to ourselves like we believe in ourselves and we can do it, and we know what work it takes, and we know it's hard, but we know we can, we're going to feel a lot more confident. So a couple of prompts for you guys to begin to ask yourselves to think about the kind of self-talk that you have is what you're saying to yourself something you'd say to your best friend? Do you say words to yourself that you would share to a teammate, to your friend, to your mom, to your brother, to your dad? Do you say to yourself what you would say to someone else? Chances are, if it's negative, probably not. The meanest things I say to myself, I would never say to someone that I love. And yet I think it's okay to say to myself. We got to cut it out. It's not okay. Imagine me saying to you what your meanest inner critic says to you. Not good. We got to make sure we're nice to ourselves. And then the second question is my self-talk or my internal dialogue, is it helping me or is it hurting me? It's an interesting question. It's a simple question, but if I'm saying to myself, oh, I suck, we're going to lose today, or geez, COVID-19 is never going to end. I'm never going to play hockey again. This is the worst. I have nothing going for me. That's not helping me at all. That's actually hurting me. It's making me feel worse and then show up worse. So trying to be productive with our self-talk. If we can practice self-talk now while we're not on the ice, we're building the skills now. So when we're on the ice, it's already natural for us to use good self-talk. Really, really important. Another important mental skill that I'm going to talk on, I think this is the last one I'm going to talk about, is what's called attention control. But that's just a fancy way to say focus. Where we're focused. Focus is an important skill. I've been told many times by coaches, you need to pay attention, focus, don't get so distracted, stop paying attention to the wrong thing. You know, you're goofing off with your friend during practice and then you miss the whole point of the drill. Not the best. So this ability to focus and refocus, that's controlling our attention. That's where that attention control word comes from. So this little quote thing here is actually the easiest to be able to kind of begin to pay attention to where your mind is and what you're focusing on. So simply, I'm feeling blank because I'm focusing on blank. I'm feeling stressed out because I'm focusing on the fact that I'll never play hockey this year, maybe. Who knows? I'm not sure. I'm feeling freaked out because all I'm paying attention to or all I'm focusing on is the math quiz that I did not study for. I'm feeling really happy because I'm focusing on how many friends I have and how great they are to me. How we focus controls how we feel. And then, as you know, how we feel impacts how we show up. So all very important, all very related. So if you're feeling a certain way that's not great because you're focusing on something not great, change it to the second sentence here. I want to feel blank, so I'm going to focus on blank. So if I say I'm feeling stressed because I'm focusing on everything that I don't know or that I can't control, then maybe that second sentence is, I want to feel calm and happy, so I will focus on all the things I can control, right? My self-talk, my efforts, my attitude, things like that. So this is a little quick reframe. And then even more importantly, which is something I wanted to talk a little bit about tonight, is kind of beginning to shift your mindset a little bit. I would do a show of hands again, but I don't see anyone, so I'm not going to do a show of hands. But if I were to do a show of hands and ask how many of you guys tend to think mostly about problems, and then how many of you guys mostly think about solutions, I'd almost guarantee that most people focus more on problems. We focus on the problems. COVID-19, school being on Zoom, who knows about hockey right now, can't get on the ice, mom's yelling at me. These are all problems. So a lot of times we put all of our attention in the problem that we don't give enough time to the solution. So then we just stay stuck on the problem. I will never forget, I told someone how much I hated the snow. I hate winter. Don't ask why I'm in the Northeast. I just don't like the winter season. I hate the cold. I'm a beach girl. Like, that's just what I am. And I remember I was complaining one day to my friend, like, oh, this stinks. It's so cold. Look at the snow out there. It's piling up, blah, blah, blah. And they said to me, hey, focusing on how much you hate the snow is not going to take the snow away. So if I just stare at the negativity of the snow, or we just stare at the fact that COVID is kind of taking control right now, we have no room left to focus on anything else, right? So I had a choice in that moment with the snow. I could either stare at the snow and hate it, or I could find some beauty in it. Well, now it gives me a good chance to like watch some good movies at night because it gets dark at 3 p.m. Or now I can maybe learn how to ski or snowboard. I've never done that before. So finding solutions to problems, not just problems. So going back to the cup thing, if my cup is up here, I could stare all day at the fact that my cup is at the very top of its limit. It's almost about to overflow. Oh my gosh, such a problem. Or I can ask myself, how can I dump some of that cup out? Me asking that question alone helps me start to think about the solution. So think about a hockey game. Excuse me. In a hockey game, if something happens and you're a goalie and you get scored on and now you're in a bad mood, if you just focus on what happened, right, the goal, and now we're down 1-0, this is the worst, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. As a team, as a teammate, you're not helping find a solution, right? Or as the goalie, you can look at the ice and say, okay, this is what we should do. I can see the ice, and now this is kind of what I'm seeing would be helpful for us. That's a solution. So going into what we're in right now with this pause in hockey, think of this second list right on this list right here, the second versus obstacles versus opportunities. It's really easy to look at all the obstacles. There are a lot of obstacles we're facing right now, uncertainty being a big one. There's a lot of restrictions, limitations, problems, issues. There's a lot of obstacles right now that are preventing us from doing what we love and being around the people we love. That's a fact, right? There are a lot of obstacles. I'm not going to pretend that everything's great. It sucks. However, there are also a lot of opportunities. This word opportunity is one of my, if not my favorite word. It's probably my most used word in the dictionary. I use this word all of the time. Finding opportunities, not just staring at obstacles. So I've trained myself, me personally, Nicole, I've trained myself that when COVID-19 first started in when was it? March. When it became like a thing in March and things were starting to close down and everything, I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, awesome. There's more time now to do things. I don't have to go running around place to place. I can do it all here on my computer. Naturally, I thought about the opportunities, which was for me an aha moment. But for so long, all I did was focus on obstacles. If I only focused on obstacles, I would be a miserable, miserable person, because all I'm looking at is the stuff I can't do, which is not in my control. So looking for opportunities has to be intentional and has to be practiced so that it can become a skill. Focus can become a skill. Attention control can become a skill. Where do you put your attention? If you're focusing on the things on the left side of this list, problems, obstacles, the adversity, threats, we're going to feel pretty miserable. However, if we can shift our attention to the solutions, to opportunities, to advantages, to the challenges to overcome, we're going to feel a little bit more better, or a little bit better. I guess a little bit more better isn't really a phrase, but we're going to feel better if we can focus on the opportunities. So right now, with COVID being here and not being allowed to be on the ice, we're presented with a lot of obstacles, but don't for a moment forget all the opportunities that we have. We have opportunities to work on our mind. We wouldn't have been having this conversation if it wasn't for COVID-19 happening. Not directly anyways, I probably wouldn't be involved. We wouldn't have the chance to really appreciate our teammates and have to like really intentionally connect with each other. We wouldn't have the time to sleep in the morning because we'd have to be in homeroom or first period or whatever. We wouldn't have the time and we wouldn't have the opportunity to work on things that we normally wouldn't set aside time for. Since this whole pandemic started, I've been able to do a lot more self-work, like reflection, journaling, meditating, things that are really good for my mind. I would never have done that stuff if I didn't have the time. So although this time is really challenging, we can work on things now that are going to help us later on. So the last thing I want to say about attention control is that I want to go back to the example in the very beginning when I said, when a coach says you have to get stronger and the athlete knows to go to the gym, the athlete knows to go run, the athlete knows to eat good food, to sleep well, to practice drills, they know all those things. So this kind of stuff, the mental push-ups that I'm talking about, we need to do it in order to have it show up on the ice when we are eventually able to go back on the ice, because it will happen. We will be allowed to play again. It will happen. But we need to do the work now so that we take advantage of this time instead of just waiting and doing nothing and staying stagnant. We actually have a chance here to get better. So I always ask athletes, like, how many of you do lunges in the gym? A lot of athletes who weight train will raise their hand. Yeah, I do lunges. And then I'll ask the question, when's the last time you did a lunge on the ice? When's the last time you were playing a hockey game and did a lunge? I've never gotten someone telling me that they intentionally did a lunge during a hockey game. However, the purpose behind the lunging in the gym is to build the muscles so that you can then use those muscles on the ice. So doing stuff like this, like practicing mindfulness, self-talk, your focus skills, if you practice that now, maybe you're not going to pause and ask yourself opportunities and obstacles in the middle of a game, but because you've practiced it off the ice, that muscle's automatically going to be stronger and able to be activated so that you can use it on the ice. So this stuff is really important and can really help. And this little quote here, where the focus goes, the energy flows. How true is that? Where the focus goes, the energy flows. If you're thinking good things, focusing on good things, focusing on opportunities, your energy is going to go into that opportunity. If you focus on all the crappy things, more than likely your focus is going to be somewhere not great. Your energy is going to go down. So it's really important to begin to pay attention to where your focus goes. And I will say too about, I know I keep saying this last thing about focus, but I will say one more thing about it. You think about like a bank account. We have a limited amount of money in our bank accounts and we have to budget where we put our money. If I have a $20 bill in my pocket, that thing is gone in a couple hours and I don't even remember spending $1 because I'm not paying attention to the $20 and what I want to spend it on. I'm not being intentional. Our attention is the same way. Our focus is the same way. We only have a limited amount of attention per day. So if we choose to spend our attention and put our attention all on negative things, we have no money left in our pocket or we have no attention left here for the good things. So it's really important to empower yourselves and tell yourselves like, hey, I can choose to focus on something that's going to actually help me. So that's empowering enough. And the last kind of couple things I want to do, this is a little refresher just of what I already went over. So the skill of mindfulness. So things like self-reflection, using that RAIN, recognize, accept, investigate, nurture, start to get to know yourself. Mindfulness, that's a skill. Another skill, self-talk, improves our confidence, improves our accountability, improves our focus. Our self-talk, we can see the relationship between our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors, or our actions, or our performance, and paying attention to that coach versus that critic. Who are we listening to? Because we have a choice in who we listen to. Whether or not we know it, we have a choice. And then this third skill of attention control. So focusing on the right stuff, focusing on things that help us, focusing on the opportunities, and starting to shift our mindset from, oh, this is a terrible problem, to, okay, here's the problem. Now what's the solution? That's a big deal. Think about on the ice when you're with your teammates. If something happens in the game and strategy breaks down, if we just focus on the fact that the strategy is broken down, we're never going to get out of that. We need to make sure we're focusing on solutions to get better, to improve. That's the whole point, right, of being an athlete, is to notice the difficulty and then to be able to kind of like battle that and use our mindset and shift it so that we can continue to evolve and get better and stronger and win our games, when, you know, whatever it might be. And then a couple of additional strategies for all of you guys: practices, exercises, prompts, whatever you want to call it. Journaling. I'm a big fan of journaling. We know ourselves the best. No one else knows what's going on in here. Even if we think our parents are mind readers, they're not. Even if we think our coaches are mind readers and they should know I had a bad day today, they don't. Only we know us. So it's really important to begin to pay attention to what's going on so that you can begin to understand yourself. The more you understand and care about yourself, the more you're going to help yourself and take care of yourself. Second thing, talking with someone you trust. If you have someone you trust and who you know cares about you, talk to them when you need it. Sometimes just thinking out loud is a very helpful strategy. Just talking out loud. Mindset shifting, I've talked about this a lot. So looking for the opportunities. So maybe tomorrow you wake up in the morning and you think to yourself, all right, it's my goal today to find 3 opportunities when I'm in a bad mood. So you wake up, oh, we're out of milk, I can't have cereal. Think about the opportunity. Well, this can give me a good chance to be able to drive and listen to my favorite song. Taylor Swift just came out with a new album. So now you can drive in the car to the store with your mom and dad and listen to Taylor Swift. Awesome. Opportunity 1. Maybe you wake up late or early, I'm saying, and you're tired because you went to bed late. So the opportunity is, all right, I'm going to be tired today, which means that I'm going to fall asleep really well tonight. Something simple. The more simple you practice looking for opportunities, the more it's going to come natural to you. So practice shifting your mindset. And then practicing good self-talk, noticing what you say to yourself. Again, this is where journaling comes in. I encourage you guys to write out what you're saying to yourself. If you can read it out loud and be like, oh man, I'm mean to myself, you're probably gonna be more motivated to shift it, because what we say to ourselves, again, influences how we feel. And one thing I didn't say that I should have with feelings and self-talk, I'm actually gonna go back to that slide because it's important. So this one here, where it says thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Our feelings are important, and there's no wrong feeling. If you feel stressed, it's not wrong. You're just feeling stressed. It's what you feel. Feelings are information. They help us know where we're at. It gives us a gauge. If anyone has ever been given the advice, just calm down. Stop being so angry. Would you just cheer up? That advice is really bad because feelings are natural. Feelings are okay no matter what the feeling is. So it's not, will you calm down? It's really, what can I do to help myself generate a feeling of like calm? That's really what it should be. So we think about what led to the feeling, not the feeling itself. If I tell myself to stop being sad when I'm crying, that doesn't help. I wish I could do that, but it doesn't. So knowing what we say to ourselves, how it impacts how we feel, and then how we show up every day. Let's see, anything else? I think that's it for now. I know there'll be a Q&A at the end, but the last thing I wanted to touch on is just what mental toughness is. And I know like I probably should have started with this, but I think it's important to not start with this. Mental toughness is doing your best to be your best, even when times are tough. That doesn't mean doing more and doing as much as possible and burning yourself out. It means checking in with yourself, knowing how you're feeling and knowing what you need to feel better so that you can show up your best version of yourself. So right now we're in a tough time, but tough times make tough people. So none of us would be able to be as tough as we are right now if it wasn't for what we're going through. So learn to try to appreciate the toughness and embrace it so that it can help us instead of hurt us. All of this is mental skills. I'm going to be here for the rest of the time to be able to answer any questions. So ignore the questions, comments, concerns. But yeah, so I'll be here. Hopefully you guys got something out of that. But my big message is just train your mind like you train your body. They're both important. So thank you guys for listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nicole. Before you run away, I do have one question that I was asked by someone. So this is in relation to your coach and critic cartoon.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like I can't get rid of the critic. Any ideas on how to find the coach and the self-talk when it's really, really hard for me and doesn't come easily?
Yeah, there's a couple things here. So the first thing, and actually, Megan, I can send this to you. I have worksheets on this. So essentially, like being able to find out what that critic is saying. So if you know you're listening to that critic and it just won't shut up, unfortunately, we can't flick the critic off our shoulder. I wish we could, but we can't. So the goal is to be able to listen to the coach too and kind of take both. But if you can't stop listening to the critic, one piece of advice would be to ask yourself, what can I take from this critic's comment? If the critic is saying, geez, you're just not good enough, you stink, or you're going to lose, could you maybe listen to that critic and say, you're saying that I'm going to lose, but you know what this tells me? That I'm motivated. I want to get better. That's a good thing. And then take from the critic what you can, instead of just like absorbing what the critic says with every ounce of you. Listen to the critic like it's someone talking to you. Take from it what you can, and then do your best to practice now. Okay, what would the coach say instead? That's one thought, is just take what you can from the critic. And then the other thought is, when the critic is saying something, write it down on a piece of paper. Obviously, this can't happen when you're in the middle of a game, but if you're at home, write down what the critic is saying to you. And then write down next to it, like almost like a 2-column thing. So the first column is what the critic is saying. The second column is what the coach would say. So if the critic says something like, you're never going to get this, you can't, you're not good enough, whatever the critic might be saying, those are just common ones. What would the coach be saying? Like kind of argue that back. What's the argument? So the critic is saying, I can't do it. The coach is saying, you've done this before, you can do this. Something as simple as that. So like almost picture watching a debate. The critic says one thing, what would the coach say back? And now the reason why I say to do this on paper is because it takes a lot of intentional practice. Just like when you're first like doing a drill on the ice, you go really slow so that you understand how to move your body, the way that your body should move, using your hips in certain ways. And then once you get the fundamentals and muscle memory down, then you can start to work on speed. Same thing with your mind. So slow it down, work on it on paper, and practice it on paper so that you can eventually speed up and do it in real time. But again, writing it down and then seeing what that coach would say back to that critic is another option. So hopefully that's helpful.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for all that insight. That was awesome. I move on over to Nicole. I'm going to try my best to stop your video here, and then I'm going to invite our 2 NCAA players who are with us today. We've got Abby Dirks, who is from St. Mike. She's a defensewoman there and a senior. I'm going to ask her to start up her video, as well as Lilly Holmes from UVM, who's also with us today. I'm going to unmute you guys too if I can. There we go. I think if you guys can unmute, that'd be great too. Excellent. All right. So one second. There we go. So I'm going to ask you guys just a couple of questions sort of in relation to the things that Nicole was talking about. So I'd love for you guys to just, again, sort of introduce yourself, say hello, but then talk a little bit about what's been going on for you guys at the college level. I know that you guys have been promised that you'll start up and then maybe you're stopping, and then you've done some practices and had a break. I'd love for you to just sort of talk about what that's been like, but also sort of like the feelings, identifying the feelings that have sort of gone along with that. It doesn't matter who starts.
I can start. I'm Abby. I'm from St. Mike's. And I think, so for us, we started out skating pretty early, and we ended pretty abruptly. So I literally was up for a 7:30 a.m. practice and was at the rink at 7 a.m. at Carnes, and was turned around and sent to go home because there was an outbreak at school. So I guess like I was really excited to be playing. It was like everything was going well. We were finally getting out of our pods, which like at first we were put into smaller groups to practice, and then we were finally playing as like a full team, which was really exciting. So it was like going really well, and then that happened really suddenly for us. So at first that was super heartbreaking. And I think overall, it just kind of made me realize how appreciative I was that we even got to step on the ice. And I guess we're just hopeful because we're supposed to be playing again in a few weeks. So we're just hopeful that that will go well.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm Lilly Holmes from UVM. I'm a junior. I'm having kind of a hard time. Same kind of thing. We got here in August and we had been practicing. We knew we were going to have a long preseason because we knew that it probably wasn't going to start on time. But we were told November. There's no way you're not playing in November. You're going to be on the ice. So everyone was we were grinding. We were doing our best, trying to get ready for November. And the weekend before we were supposed to have our first games, we were told, no, you're canceled. Your season's being pushed back. And that was hard just because it was specifically UVM and the other teams in our league are still playing and we have to watch them and see them get points. So it's been pretty hard. But for me, I just keep looking like I can't stop because when they do say we're going to play, like I have to be ready. Like there's no choice. So I'm trying to stay positive. I'm supposed to play this coming weekend and fingers crossed it happens. And if it gets pushed back, then we just have to keep on going. It's been a little more difficult just because we're not allowed to go home for Christmas or any of the holidays. So that'll be difficult, but this is why we play hockey because we love it. So I wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't worth it to me. So.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Lilly, for the next one, I'm going to come back to you first and then Abby. So what skills and strategies have you guys then used to stay positive and to stay motivated to train? Obviously, Lilly, you just mentioned that you kind of like feel like you have to, right? Like kind of what Nicole was talking about, kind of getting past that, oh my God, I have to get out of bed for a 6 a.m. workout and I don't even know when we're going to be playing. What skills and strategies? And then Abby, I'm going to change up the question slightly for you, but Lilly, if you could start, that'd be great.
Yeah, so totally. So I definitely have those days. A couple days ago, it was one of them. I had lift and my legs were insanely tired and I was like, oh, I just don't want to go through it today. But one thing that I do is I actually on my computer, I have kind of a spreadsheet of a list of goals. And some of them are hockey related and some of them are as simple as like, today I want to get my groceries for the week or I want to clean my room. And then my hockey ones are things like I want to be more offensive. I want to score 3 goals in one of our games today. And those things are kind of what helps me get through it because if I think about the long term of, oh my gosh, I might not even play till January, it becomes too overwhelming for me. So if I can just break down like week by week, day by day, little goals, that is something that is super helpful for me. And I like to be able to see it on my computer and have it there. And I update it all the time or whenever I'm feeling like that. So that's what I do.
That's awesome. I think that's really good. Right now, we're all just trying to put one foot in front of the other and we don't know what's happening tomorrow. So I think that's a really great suggestion and I'm glad that's working out for you guys too. So Abby, similar question, but I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I'd love for you to talk about those skills and strategies, particularly in light of, Lilly just mentioned she hopefully, fingers crossed, is playing a little bit sooner than say Mike's would be anyways. But talk a little bit about how it feels to be a senior right now and how you're staying motivated, not having that end goal and that having that uncertainty of I might not even be able to play. Not to bring up a sad subject, but I prepared you in advance, so I'm hoping you'll be okay.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So that has definitely been a huge struggle, obviously. But I think a big thing is, first of all, like both of you have said and Nicole has said, like taking things day by day is like super important. And also like hockey is supposed to be fun. So even like when I'm training, like I just have to remember that there are things about my training that like are like fun. So like even though like I have no idea what's going to happen in, a week and 2 months, even tomorrow, I don't know what kind of news I'm going to be getting. I make sure that like whatever I'm training for, like I'm thinking about how fun it is. So like for me, like I'm not like I don't love like stick handling. That's not my favorite part of hockey, but like I love skating. And so like working on like doing workouts that like are specific to skating or like things like that, like just like trying to focus on like day to day thinking about making those things fun. And also just like being able to like talk about it with my teammates. I think a lot of people, I have like a lot of really good support. And so just being able to be open with that, because it is like, it's a loss, and like everyone's experiencing loss right now. But loss is something that comes with growth. So I think just recognizing that has been really important.
Awesome. So just quick notes, everyone. We have a couple more questions. I have a couple more direct questions for these guys, but just as a reminder, there is a Q&A. So participants out there, if you have any questions for these guys or for Nicole, feel free to pop them into the Q&A box now. I'm going to bring Nicole back here in just a minute or two as well to kind of wrap up and answer any last minute questions. So again, back to questions for both of you. Feel free to hop in, whoever wants to go first. But how do you, we've been talking about mental skills a little bit. How do you sort of keep that competitive edge and stay competitive? So for example, with the goals, that kind of leads into the competitive piece. Like, I want to get my list done and make sure it's done by the end of the day by a certain time. And Lilly, I know you've been on the ice, and I've seen some celebration for your game day that you guys have. And sort of how do you interact with your teammates in that vein to make sure that you guys are staying competitive and working that mental aspect of your game?
Yeah, so I'm very lucky to have probably one of the best teams, like competitive wise, but also just girls. I think we're all a bunch of great girls, and they're like some of my like 8 closest friends that I would say they're best friends, and there's like 8 of them on my team. And I would say for competitiveness, a lot of it is we want to make each other better. We're not just in it for ourselves. So if I go easy on one of my friends, it's just going to make it harder for her in a game, because no one's going to go easy on her in a game. And I would want the same thing for me. I would want them to go as hard as they can against me, and they do. And also, it's funny because we tend to go a little bit harder against each other because we know they're our best friends. Like, I totally was trying to pin my roommate, and I ended up like checking her like really hard into the board just because I was trying to be extra aggressive. And I would also say I would give credit to my coach. We do in our practices, we'll do a couple drills, and then we'll do a game. And in those games, he takes stats. And so like how many goals you're on for, how many against, for if you score, if you get an assist, and then he posts them in the locker room. And you see how you do that week. Like everyone can see it if you're at the bottom and if you're at the top. And for me, if I see my name at the bottom, like that next week, I better be at the top. So for me, that's something that I really like. And then we even sometimes you won't play if you're at the bottom too. So everyone wants ice time. So that's it too.
So I guess it's a little different for me since I'm at home and all my teammates are at home. So we're kind of working on our own, but something really cool that my coach did that I think that you guys could put into place with your own teammates is we were each put into accountability groups, and each group had to come up with a different way to keep each other accountable. So my particular group has a selfie group chat, and whenever we work out or do something to do with hockey, or even do something that's like supposed to be like building our mental health, so even it's like a walk with our dogs, things like that, we send selfies to each other. And I think that it's really important because we kind of keep it like pretty lighthearted and fun, but we know that when we come back on our first day of practice, whenever that is, hopefully soon, that those like all those days of like working hard, that like we want like to like prove that like what we were doing was actually helping us and like actually putting us like forward in our game. And I think like kind of all that preparation is like just getting us ready for like having that competitive edge when we get back, and like showing that like all that hard work and like all those selfies we sent each other weren't just like, you know, faking it. Like we were really working hard, and but we also have fun with it. So kind of both of those at once.
Awesome. I love that sort of social media aspect and staying in touch with your team too. All right, I have 2 more questions for you guys, then we'll bring Nicole back, and I do have a question or 2 in the Q&A before we wrap up. So again, if anyone has any additional questions, feel free to pop them in there. We'll try to get them answered as quickly as we can. So is there anything from Nicole's presentation, you guys were here for the whole time, even though we didn't have your videos on, that you guys found interesting or you might want to sort of use to your advantage after sort of listening into what she had to say?
Yeah, for me, one thing is the self-talk and the little critic. I am awful with that on the ice. I will tell myself that I'm horrible, that I shouldn't be a Division I ice hockey player, that all horrible, horrible things. But I know I've worked hard and I know I deserve to be on that ice. So for me, trying to change that is something that I really want to do. And I've noticed that if I'm getting nervous, like I'm going up, it's my turn in line for the drill, and in my head, if I'm thinking, I can't take a bad shot, I can't take a bad shot, the only thing that stays in my head is bad shot. And guess what I do? I go out and I take a horrible shot. Where if I can just switch it and flip it to say, like, okay, I'm going to take a good shot. I'm going to take a good shot. The good shot stays in my head. And then that's what ends up happening. So trying to just change that, like just like flipping it from something negative to positive, even though if it's saying the same thing, really has helped me. So self-talk, definitely I need to get better at.
Awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think also a side that really stuck out to me was which talks about opportunities and like seeing things as opportunities. I think I always thought about having positive self-talk and like pushing myself in that way, but instead of like seeing the obstacles, seeing the opportunities, like, and actually like thinking that to myself, like, it's helped me like completely like shift my mindset. And I love, like, I'm really happy that she put that up there and like, so you can like physically see those words. Cause I think like literally like having words like that are like, is like so important. And that's like part of your self-talk. And so I really like that.
Awesome. Someone in the Q&A just read my mind for my last question. So for you too. So we're going to go with that one first, and I'll get to the other one in the question once I bring Nicole back in. So if each of you had one thing to recommend to the young female hockey athletes in this webinar, what would it be to stay positive right now?
A little thing that's really specific that has really gotten me to stay positive is, first of all, I try to write down, I do try to write down my goals, but one thing I try to write down every day is 3 things I'm grateful for. And that could have to do with hockey or not have to do with hockey. But it's kind of funny because every day, so I started doing this only a few weeks ago to kind of build up my mental health. And like, it's not something that like helps you with like on like that first day. It's like something that like over time you start to see like you were grateful for like so many things, and there are still so many good things in life right now. And so just kind of like being able to like sit back and like think about those things, and I keep all the little pieces. I'm not the type of person to like keep one journal. I'd like write things on like random pieces of paper. I'm kind of a scatterbrain kind of person, but I have all those pieces of paper on like random sticky notes, like random like notepads from my mom's office, like things like that, and I keep all of them. So when I'm really struggling, I go back and I look at them, and that's when like I have so many different things, and it's like you don't realize how many good things you have in your life until you write them all down. And that's been like super helpful with me. And I've only started doing that in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I would say for me that has helped is just trying to take all this negative and extra time, and Nicole touched on it, to look at the positive aspect of it. So when I got sent home early for school in the summer and the rinks were closed and I had no way of working out, I started doing my dad's yard work. I started raking leaves. He had me like chopping wood, and it was something that was getting me in shape, but I was also spending a lot of time with my dad. So that was something that, you know, it was horrible. But I was getting better, and I was spending quality time with my dad. Same thing, I got to spend a lot more time with my mom. We'd go on walks. It's just, you have to take this hard stuff and find something good with it. And that's helped me a lot.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So with that question, I'm going to go ahead and invite Nicole back to start her video back up when she gets a moment here. Awesome. Welcome back, Nicole. Excellent. So we do have one more question in the Q&A. We might have time for one more if someone else has something else they would like to ask. And then I have one final question for all of you guys. So the question that's in the Q&A, how do you deal with not completing your goal for the day? Example, I want to finish my math homework today, but I didn't get to finish it. How do you guys deal with sort of that extra thing in the cup, if you will?
You want me to start?
Whoever can go, sorry. It was kind of an open-ended, anyone can answer, so feel free to.
Yeah, that's a good question. It kind of reminds me more of like, how do you deal with like disappointment or not reaching kind of what you hope to reach, which we're all experiencing in different ways, but the math homework is a good example of it too. I try to focus more on how I'm doing, not what I'm doing, especially right now. It's really easy to focus again on like the what, like I didn't get my math homework done, even though I said I was going to. This sucks. I focus more on like, did I try my hardest today? Did I do what I could with what I had? And then how can I get better tomorrow? So how can I continue to be my best? As you two girls are talking, I was writing little notes in my phone. And one thing I didn't touch on that you guys both kind of touched on without saying is like the difference between being the best and being your best. Big difference. If we focus on being the best, we're never going to succeed because there's always other people that we're comparing ourselves to. We can't control the people. All we can control is ourselves. So being our best. So for you with the math homework, for example, like if you didn't get it done, it's like you did your best today. And now tomorrow the goal can be to get a little bit better at being your best. And maybe that means, okay, I learned today that I need to time manage a little better. So I think of it more in like, how can you kind of, again, like positive, how can you take the positive from the situation and apply it to tomorrow to get better? It's kind of like, well, we were planning on beating St. A's and we lost. Well, okay, we can't really time travel and play St. A's again. So with the math homework, I can't really just like replay today and hope for the best. Like all we can do is be present. So what can you do with what you have right now? So trying your hardest to fight that urge to time travel mentally. We're always either going in the past and dwelling on things that already happened or didn't happen, or we're jetting to the future and like getting anxious about things that haven't happened yet. So, I didn't do my math homework. That's a past thing. So now tomorrow is going to be crazy. That's a future thing. Let's be present right now. What did you learn from not doing the math homework? What can you take for tomorrow? All we can do for tomorrow is prepare. All we can do from yesterday is learn. So we really have to try to be present. So that's my advice, is try to stay in the present moment and take what you can from what's already happened. But that's a very complicated answer to a very simple one. So maybe you two have a better answer.
My only thing with that is my favorite quote, and I don't know where it came from. I'd love to know who said it first, is not to let perfection be the enemy of greatness, and kind of being happy in like the journey. So like if you're working so hard to be perfect and always complete all your goals, like that is only going to deter you from being great. And I say that to myself a lot when I feel like I'm failing, because all of it is part of the journey and failure is part of the journey. Everyone will tell you that. So expecting yourself to be perfect is only going to keep you further away from greatness. So go for greatness.
Yeah, for me, it's as simple as, oh, I didn't do it today. I guess I'll try to do more tomorrow, or I guess I'll try to work on it tomorrow. I don't like to stay down about my goals because I think it's really hard to hit every one of your goals. And I definitely don't every day, but that's why they're goals. They're just something to strive for. Just because you write something down as a goal doesn't mean that you have to hit it. It's just something to think about. So that's what I try to remind myself too.
Awesome. We did just get one more question. So we're going to take this one more question and then I have an ending question for the group. Before I get to that question, Nicole, was St. A's your like arch nemesis like it was for hockey? Because when you said St. A's, me and Abby.
No, I said it because I know St. Mike's hockey arch nemesis. We didn't like St. A's, but there are a lot of other teams we didn't like more.
I just started cracking up, so sorry.
Yeah, I know that's like the hockey big like, rival, so I figured I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, you grew up back.
Love it. So last question in the Q&A. How do you deal with the feeling of being pressured or being expected to do things right now that you might not quite be ready for? I'm assuming that also sort of has to do with sort of that not being a thing that you can have in your cup right at this very moment.
I'm like rereading the question. So like absorb it. I think for me, it goes back to the you know yourself best. So if you feel like you're not ready for something, being honest with yourself and asking yourself what you are ready for so that you can like take it in stride and take it like step by step, like both of these ladies were saying, like take things moment by moment instead of like big picture. Sometimes the big picture is intimidating. It's kind of like if you're, I'm always like wicked corny with like the symbols, but like if you're going on a road trip and you want to go from Vermont to California, you don't just like want to be in California right now and that's it. You have to kind of take it step by step. And you have to follow the GPS to get where you want to get. So it is like goal setting a little bit too. And like if you take a wrong turn or you do something a little bit too much, you try to go too far with no gas, like you learn, right? You stay in the moment, you problem solve, and then you keep going. So when you feel like you're not ready for something and you're pressure, like you feel pressure, that pressure is information, right? So what is that pressure telling you? Does it mean that you need to like slow down? Because that's okay. Does it mean that you need to kind of pause for a minute? That's okay. Do you need to kind of reflect with someone else? That's okay. Being able to really like understand what that pressure is trying to tell you. So it's kind of before like what I was saying with the critic, like what is the critic trying to say, or what can they be telling us? What can the pressure be telling you? What is it saying to you? What is something you can grab from that experience? So I don't know if that helps or not. That's a good question.
For me, that's a hard question, because is it something you're not ready for, or is it something that's going to make you uncomfortable?
Mhm.
Because a lot of times I think that the only way to grow is to get out of your comfort zone. You know, you have to push yourself a little bit to get better. If you keep lifting the same weights or keep doing the same exercises, your muscles aren't going to grow anymore. So you have to do something that's a little harder. But you do know yourself. So if there is something that's like, I can't go and try to lift like 400 pounds, like I'm going to break my back. So obviously I wouldn't do that. But like you have to know what your body can take and what your like mental state can take. And if you really can't do it, then that's okay. But it is okay a little bit to push yourself, and that's good too.
Yeah, that word pressure kind of reminds me of like the feeling of like being overwhelmed, if that's what you mean. And like, I think for me, when I'm overwhelmed, like if I'm thinking like, okay, I have to skate in 3 weeks, like I need to do like this amount of workouts, and that's like a big like task for me. I need to like tell myself, okay, like I like today's the day, and like I just need to put at least 20 minutes in when it's like feeling like a lot. And like if I just put 20 minutes in, then that turns into usually on if it's an okay day, turns into like if it's working out, like you get those 20 minutes and you know it turns into a longer workout, or like you're more motivated once you even start. And like if I just tell myself that it's literally just 20 minutes or even 10 minutes, like some days it can only be 10 minutes, and we all have those days that like usually once I get outside or once I get like you know to my shooting pad or something, like then once I'm there, then I can move forward with that.
Really great answers, guys. So wrapping up, last piece, I'm gonna ask you guys, what out of kind of the mental skills realm, staying positive, staying motivated, staying engaged with hockey, what's the one piece of like information or advice that you want to leave with the group today?
I kind of have two.
You can have two, Nicole, that's okay.
Well, the first one is like, there's always opportunities. There are always opportunities. It's a matter of looking for them. If you're not looking for opportunities, you're not going to find them. If you look for opportunities, it's starting to put you in the right headspace to look for the good stuff. And that doesn't mean positive, rah, rah. It can mean productive. Like, this is hard, but now what's the opportunity? It's an opportunity for me to grow and be uncomfortable and get better. So looking for opportunities is always an option. The other thing I wanted to talk on, and it's a little bit about identity more than anything, but I do think it's really important right now while we're not able to play the sport that we love and that we really identify ourselves as. Most of you guys probably say like, hi, I'm Abby and I'm a hockey player. Like, it's just part of who you are. So I think it's really important to begin to tease that apart a little bit. And sports, hockey, that's what we do. It is not who we are. It's what we do. Sport is a great opportunity, there's that word again, to practice being who we are. Right? So Abby, the hockey player, is actually Abby, the hard worker, the teammate, the communicator, the positive person who also plays hockey and gets to show those qualities on the ice. So trying to figure out who you are as a person, how your sport helps you practice being your best, but really understanding that just because you're not able to play a sport or do your sport right now doesn't mean that you're not you. It just means you can't do part of what you like to do. So you can still practice being you, even without the sport. I think that's really important. And for me, like currently, like I still struggle with that idea because like the athlete side of me is like, no, I'm the athlete. But the truth is like, we've been shown now this year, like our sport can be taken away from us. What we do can be taken away from us, but who we are can't be taken away from us ever. So that's like kind of a big message for me.
Awesome.
For me, I think it's be gentle with yourself, but know that as athletes, like we have it in us to push ourselves and to continue to be the best we can be and improve ourselves. So just make sure you're gentle with yourself, but know that you have it in you.
For me, I would say is that like it's okay to have bad days. It's okay. Like everyone is going to have a bad day, but the whole point is just trying to grow and trying to get better. And if you can just do that, then that is enough for that day.
Really awesome closing statements.
What would yours be?
Yeah, what'd you say?
What would yours be?
What would mine be?
Your message.
My message, gosh, I have to follow that act.
Sorry.
Thanks for flipping the script there. I think that it's same message as everyone else in terms of it's really just putting one foot in front of the other. I know one of my goals right now is to get myself back into shape because I slipped down the slippery slope of the COVID-15, and I would like to sort of get myself back into just getting out for a run and doing, like Abby said and Lily said, sort of just like that 20 minutes a day. And it was really hard at first, and I'm kind of 3 weeks in now. I'm putting one foot in front of the other, and every day my goal is just to go do that 20 minutes. And if it's not a great 20 minutes, it's a really slow run or a really slow workout, that's okay. And I feel better at the end of the day. So I think just doing something is better than doing nothing. It's okay to take rest days, but you know, even working on your mental skills, if you need to just veg out for a day and not do anything, that's okay too. Everybody has their days, as Lily said. So that would be my 2 cents at the end there. So thanks, Nicole. Awesome. So with that, I want to thank everybody who attended, and just let you know that, as Nicole mentioned, we will be sending out some resources afterwards, probably tomorrow, so that I can sort of get everything together, as well as a survey. This is the first time we've done a webinar, so we appreciate you hanging with us. And if this continues, and maybe even just in general, we might kind of institute this every once in a while just to get you guys to interact with some folks and learn some new things. Like I said, off the ice is just as important as on the ice. And most of all, I want to thank our presenters tonight, Abby and Lily and Nicole. You guys did an amazing job and really fed off each other well too. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time tonight to be here. And if we could give you a round of applause, I would. But I'll be in touch with you guys after as well. But thanks for everyone for participating. If you have any questions after, that sort of, I know for me, sometimes my brain keeps thinking after things like this, and then I have questions the next day or in the next couple hours. You can email us at info@girlsforhockey.com. And remember, it's the number 4 in the middle. And we can make sure to get those questions answered for you. We do have some stuff going on right now. We should have some virtual skills happening, and keep an eye out for emails when, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be back on the ice. And maybe, I think I forgot to mention that Abby and Lily are also our skills coaches, so they might be on the ice with you too, so you might see those guys. And if they get to play, make sure you follow along with them as well, and UVM and St. Mike's, and see how they're doing and check in on these guys. So again, thank you guys for being here, and we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you all on the ice soon, and you all stay safe and hang in there. Thank you, everyone.